Good evening, and welcome to Keeping Watch, a live stream series where we expose what's happening in Florida politics this week. I'm Natasha Sutherland, the Black Constituency Communications Director for the Florida Communications and Research Hub. And joining me this evening, we have Senator Gary Farmer from State Senate District 34 in Broward County, Representative Angie Nixon from State House District 14 in Duval County, and Robin Lockett with Florida Rising to talk about Florida's housing crisis and what's happening in the legislature. I'll kick it over to Senator Farmer to start the introductions.
Well, thank you, Natasha, very much. It's good to be with like-minded, reasonable, equitable, fair people. We don't get a lot of that in the Florida Capitol these days, so it's good to be with you. And I thank everybody for joining us on this call. The bottom line here is our republic and our democratic form of government is under attack. Day in, day out, issue after trying to fight the good fight, and we're just encouraged and buttressed and supported and propped up by all the good folks that help us. Robin Lockett with Florida Rising, yourself, Natasha, and the bottom line is, we're here. I feel like I'm here to give a voice, and I'm here in the Florida Senate to give a voice to the people that don't have a lobbyist, to the little guy and the little gal who can't travel to Tallahassee, don't have a special interest group looking out for them. This is supposed to be a democracy of, by, and for the people, and unfortunately, the people are not really being adequately represented. And I just privileged to be here, privileged to be with this great group. Have become a huge Representative Angie Nixon fan. She just delivers and brings it every day on the House floor, and I'll turn it over to her.
Thanks for that rousing introduction, Senator Farmer. It's great to be your colleague in the fight. So I'm Representative Angie Nixon. I'm super excited to be here. Thanks to Progress Florida and Florida Watch for hosting this. Thanks to Natasha for being our host. And of course, I love Robin Lockett with Florida Rising. We've been organizing together in the state for a few years. And so I'm super excited to be a state rep, to be someone who actually comes from the movement. There's very few state reps that actually come from the movement. So, I am beholden to the people, right? I'm not beholden to special interest groups. And I know that the people are unfortunately hurting right now because we are in a housing crisis. And I'm going to do everything I can to fight back against big corporations, to fight back against this administration, since, we're not really doing anything to address that housing issue. And so I'm honored to be here and going to talk about some of the great things we have coming down the pipeline and some of the stuff that we're pushing.
Hi, everybody. My name is Robin Lockett, and I am the Regional Director of Florida Rising, the Tampa Bay region. That encompasses Pinellas, and just familiar with that, Hillsborough, and also Polk County. And I want to thank you for the invite. And Senator Farmer, very nice to meet you. And Angie, yeah, we go way back to the stomping days. I'm excited for session to close, to be honest, right? Because the kill is there. And it just appears that they've thrown things up. Normally you would throw things up to see what sticks. They're putting things up and choosing what they want to stick and not, right? So they have that much control. So that's why I'm excited in regards to what we're able to do here locally, because politics begins local. And our Justice on Every Block campaign, I'm excited how that's a statewide campaign that we've created. And I'm excited to be rolling that out to give the community hope of what we can do here locally. Not having the trickle down effect, but having the trickle up effect, right? We build and we work locally. They get excited about the wins that we have. And then, hey, we'll be ready to change things in Tallahassee after all the base building that we're going to be doing here locally.
I love it. This is great. I'm very excited to have all of you here on this live stream. So I'm just very honored to have you all as guests. And I just want to really quickly, before we get started, I want to remind those of you that are tuning in that there will be an opportunity to ask our guests questions at the very end. But feel free to just drop those in the comment section at any time during this live stream. All right, let's get started. First, let's talk about legislative session. Legislative session can feel confusing and overwhelming if you're not familiar with this process, the 60-day process. So before we talk about the housing crisis in Florida, Senator Farmer, can you briefly explain what legislative session is and how does it impact everyday Floridians?
Sure. So every year we convene for a 60-day legislative session. And it's staggered. Several years back, we passed a law that changes the start date. In odd number years, we start in March, and even number years, we start in January. And that, frankly, was largely driven by fundraising to get people out and done, because we can't fundraise when we're in session. Not that we're not the ones focused on fundraising. It's typically the proponents of the bad bills that Rep Nixon and I are trying to fight that care more about that. But be that as it may, we convene for 60 days to take up legislative agendas. Some states don't meet every year. We meet every year. And during that time frame, we consider bills. And, those, I think there's probably a little bit younger crowd on this thing. But if you've ever seen the Schoolhouse Rock, I'm just a bill. I'm only a bill. That's what it's all about. Now, the way it's supposed to work is every bill, once it's filed, gets assigned to committees. Committees then take the bill up. It gives us an opportunity to question the sponsor of the bill. What are you intending to do? What about maybe some potential consequences of the bill? Flesh it out, debate it, discuss it. Typically, most bills get 3 committee references. Some get 2, some get 4. But the way it's supposed to work is your bills are supposed to go through all the committees of reference before it's even eligible to go to the floor for the whole legislative body to consider it. And that's really important, because the committee process is supposed to be where we sort of fine-tune the bill or fine-tune that issue. And what's really important about the committee process is that's where people get to come up and the general public gets to testify and give their input and commentary. And to me, it's the most critical part of the whole process, because we are a government of, by, and for the people. And so that is the time when the people get to give their input. Now, I know this is kind of a primer question, so I don't want to get too wonkish, but what we've seen of late is some bills bypassing that committee process. Bills, we just today took up 2 bills in a rules committee that had never been through any committee in the Senate. And all of a sudden they came over from the House and they just got popped into this one committee meeting, and the Republicans voted for them, and now they're going to the floor. And that's not what the process is supposed to be about. And, for example, the court system, the criminal system, you talk about due process. The committee system in the legislature is kind of the due process for proposed legislation. And that's where you kick the tires, you test it, you question it. And when that doesn't happen, you're really leaving everything in the hands of the lobbyists and the staff. And unfortunately, that's starting to happen with more frequency than I'm comfortable with. But that's the general outline, and that's how it's supposed to work. If once a bill gets through committees, we vote for it on the floor. If it passes on the floor, then it goes to the governor, and the governor either signs it or vetoes it. Of course, we've got a governor now who's really engaged and, flexing his muscle and pushing his agenda. And it's a really, I'm sorry to say, hateful, hurtful, harmful agenda. But that's what we're dealing with now. And but that's how the process is supposed to work. And that's why people like myself and Rep Nixon have been elected. We come from our particular constituencies to represent our constituency and, flesh out these bills and support them if they're good bills and oppose them if they're not good bills.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so it sounds like it's 60 days of actual session, some committee meetings before that, but that basically, just the bill process is what it is every year. And they may or may not be policies that folks are really wanting or needing. So yeah, that's really interesting and helpful. I think that explanation that you've provided everybody. And so I'd love to kick it over to Rep Nixon and find out if, from your perspective, has anything felt different about this particular legislative session?
So I would say I came in at a time, I'm a freshman still, so this is my second year. However, I'm not new to this process. I actually worked as a district aide before, and being an organizer, I've come up here to committee meetings, testify, also sat in the gallery. But yes, this session is different, and it's different from some of the more senior members from what they've stated as well. What we definitely see now is a governor and some members who are not a part of my party, I would like to say, that do not care about the most vulnerable communities in our state, that are not listening and addressing the issues of the most vulnerable communities in our state. Instead, they are fixated on political ambition and creating culture wars to use as red meat for a base of voters that will, vote for them during this election season come November, and then quite possibly 2 years from now with our governor. And so it's really upsetting and discouraging at times. However, it's really important for us to know that, our voice matters, right? Like, they are doing some maneuvering, so much so because they are fearful. They're fearful that they're going to lose power because they know that the people, when it comes down to it, the people don't want this bad legislation to pass, right? And so they're maneuvering and crafting legislation to cause us to lose our voter rights. Like, it's so crazy. Like, we were just doing some modifications as it relates to like felonies previous sessions, and now they want to create like felonies and things like that for people that are stealing things like candy bars. If a child, a hungry person, someone low income steals things like 3 times because they're hungry, if they get caught, like that's going to be a felony for them. And it's not even over $30. It's absolutely ridiculous. And so it's going to be up to us to make sure that we educate people about what's actually coming out of Tallahassee. I'll give it to the governor and his folks. Like, they have some awesome talking points and messaging, but like, their stuff is really, really, really bad, right? They're creating these culture wars, passing this legislation that no one needs, and not addressing the real issues. They are really just doing stuff for people who are padding their campaign coffers, and then some of their friends, which are big corporations.
Okay, sounds pretty dismal. So one of the things that we do know, and as we're kind of winding down towards the end of this particular legislative session, hopefully, if it ends on time, and one of the things that comes to mind is the fact that, constitutionally, right, the legislature has one official mandatory job, and that is to create and pass the state budget, right? The funding for all of the state, right? And so I'm wondering, Senator, can you explain, a bit about what the budget process is like, and then how much of that budget is actually going towards housing? So we're going to go ahead and pivot to housing at this point.
Sure. Well, I gotta say, the budget process, if the average voter, the average citizen really understood the budget process, they would be mortified. They would be appalled. It is the worst of the worst. We spend $95 billion a year. It looks like, that's what we'll be this year. And you can't imagine how many interest groups and listen, the, to me, a state budget should be based on helping people, not lining the coffers of corporations and interest groups and people that are profit motivated. Okay, but it's been the opposite of that. Budget items, we sponsor budget items. Frankly, I don't sponsor many budget items at all because I have to be the person who is attacking bad social policy, and I don't want to put budget items in danger by because that's what they've come to do. They use the budget as a carrot and a stick to get what they want from people and to punish people that fight against them. And when you talk about affordable housing, you know, this is part of a bigger issue we've got here. The American dream is slipping away from ordinary people. Okay. It is becoming harder and harder for people to achieve the American dream. A home ownership. That was always like a key part of the American dream. And when you look at the statistics on affordable housing, it's appalling. I mean, we all know it. I know Rep Nixon hears it from her constituents. I hear it from mine. And people like teachers and firefighters and police officers. They are having to work 2 jobs just to achieve that American dream. And when you look at the numbers, in Central Florida alone, for example, rents have increased 20% just since January. In South Florida, rents have risen 14% across the board. Tampa Bay showed a 25% increase since last July. As homeownership has become harder and more difficult, rents have increased because if you can't buy, you got to rent. So now the rent market is becoming more and more expensive. And we've got things like the Sadowski Fund. People need to be aware of that. This is a fund we created over a decade ago, where for every home that's sold, a little piece of the doc stamps, there's all those closing costs that go into buying a house, and just a little fraction of that goes into this fund that's supposed to fund affordable housing. Well, but this is what the legislature does. They sweep that fund. They take that money that was specifically designated by law to be for affordable housing, and they take that money and they spend it on whatever else they want to spend. And too often, they basically spending it on corporate tax cuts and tax breaks for the uber wealthy, and or policies like expansion of voucher schools and things like that that's so unfair to our public schools that are so struggling. They spend it for unintended purposes, and it's just wrong. My numbers here on the House and Senate have agreed to spend just $318 million on affordable housing projects. That's 0.3% of the budget we're about to pass. And my $95 billion was based on last year. Looking at my notes now, I'm reminded that our budget's going to be over $100 billion this year. So we really care that little about the little guy and the little gal, the ordinary person, the worker, the people that are hourly wage, that are people that are just struggling and fighting and wanting to achieve that American dream. It's just wrong on so many levels. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll turn over Rep Nixon talk or Natasha, whatever program is, they do this a lot. They sweep these trust funds that have been set up, and they take the money that's intended for a specific purpose, and they just put it in their budget, spend it whatever they want. There's one trust fund they don't sweep. It's the assault weapons. I'm sorry, the private carry permit, the assault weapons permit carry fund is the only fund by law they can't sweep. So they care more about people carrying guns than they care about people being able to afford a home. And that's wrong. That's not my Florida. That's not what I know. And that's not what the people need or want. And this has got to change and got to stop. And that's why I'm so thankful for groups like Florida Rising that are there every day. Robin, you and I have not worked together personally, but God bless Ida Escamani. God bless your team. Y'all are there. You are there every time. Every time. The other night we were there at 11 p.m. in the darkened night passing a horrible bill. And there's Ida and there's Karen Woodall, and they're fighting for the little guy and the little gal. And that's what Rep Nixon does. That's what I will always do. And it's just wrong the way we're handling this.
Yeah, absolutely, Senator. I mean, I think it speaks volumes, right? The message that the legislature is sending about the priorities that they really have, right? They may say one thing, but their actions really speak louder than words. And it's my understanding that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund that you mentioned, that you were saying isn't even fully funded, right? So, you know, a lot of folks have even said in the past, you know, the amount that we used to have should have been the floor and not the ceiling when it comes to addressing, you know, the housing crisis. Like, it's a starting point to addressing the housing crisis in our state. So Rep Nixon, we know that Republicans are, you know, as we've talked about, are doing these culture war attacks, right? The Don't Say Gay bill and attacking our education and, you know, things like that. And all the while they're ignoring the housing crisis in Florida. But how are Democrats trying to fight for affordable housing for Floridians?
Right. So oftentimes our bills don't necessarily make it to the floor as Democrats. So we have to try to maneuver and get things amended to make bills a little less bad, I want to say. So there's this bad bill that recently passed that we tried to amend. The bill, they're saying, oh, you know, if folks can't afford a deposit, you can do this fee every month into perpetuity. They don't have a cap on the fee, so it could be anywhere from $25 to $100 or more, and it goes into perpetuity. They don't stop it unless the person opts out and then pays a deposit, but it's non-refundable. So the deposit is refundable. However, the fee that they already paid is non-refundable. So you're just basically, in essence, like upping their rent. So anyways, we tried to amend the bill to include a cap on rent, since rents are going up 25, 30, 40%. I literally have people calling my office and emailing me saying that their rent went up $500 and now they're going to be forced to move. And so we wanted to cap it at 10%. And the Republicans, they ruled it out of order. Like, out of order. Like, that is mind blowing to me. They didn't even want to hear it because they don't want to address the real issues, right? Yep. Because they created this crisis. Another thing that happened was I had an amendment that would have made it discriminatory for folks who have public assistance or use things like their SSI benefits or their veteran benefits or Section 8 to not discriminate against them. I can't, either they ruled it out of order or they voted no. Either way, it was bad and they didn't want to hear it because, again, like Senator Farmer stated, they only care about corporations and they're only beholden to corporations, which is why it's time for us to start electing people who are beholden to you, the constituents, the people, like Senator Farmer. Like, I like to say I'm beholden to y'all because I'm running bills that a lot of constituents come to me and tell me that they want ran. And so it's tough up here, but Democrats are fighting back, and we're trying to educate folks to let them know, like, that you need to vote, right? You need to vote. There's a reason why they're trying to suppress our right. There's a reason why they're trying to make it harder for us to vote, because they know voting is powerful, and we got to fight back at the voting booth.
Amen.
That was well stated. Absolutely.
Tosh, I could just add to that. You know, what's really frustrating about it, like when they rule something out of order, and not to change the topic, but I filed gun safety bills for 7 years and not one of them has ever gotten a hearing. They are so afraid of the debate. They are so afraid of the debate because they know on the merits we are right. They know that a majority of Floridians support the policies we're promoting. And when it comes to affordable housing, they really know because it is a pocketbook issue. It is affecting people all over the state. And that's not what democracy is about. Democracy is supposed to be about everybody having a voice and everything being heard. And for them to just avoid the debate is an insult to Floridians. And the only answer, as Rep Nixon said, is to answer at the ballot box. That's the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if they won't even let the folks have a conversation about this, then, it's the voters that have to, speak out, right, with the vote. All right, so let's turn it over to Robin from Florida Rising. Robin, why should Floridians and the rest of the country be paying attention to what's happening in the Florida legislature? And which communities are going to be hurt most by this decision to slash, once again, the housing budget?
So, two things. Whose America is it? And just because you can does not mean you should. This is a prime example of what happens when people don't have regulations. There's no boundaries. They tend to do whatever they want to do, and that's what's happening now. Everyone is going to be hurt, whether you're purchasing a home, whether you're renting a home, whether you are trying to buy a home. Everyone is hurt by this, right? Because the renter can't afford the increases. Increase. Seniors are going to be hurt by it because they're on a fixed income. So if they're on a fixed income and their $25 hurts them, right? Because of them being on a fixed income. If you're purchasing a home and the prices have increased and you can no longer afford it, even the local assistance will not help you. You're still out of your price range. That hurts you. So, everybody is being hurt by this. This situation around housing doesn't have a party affiliation. It doesn't matter. Everyone is hurt by it, right? And the locals that have lived here all their lives, they're being priced out of their homes. They're the ones that's becoming homeless because they can no longer afford their housing. So it's a bad situation. Again, back locally, we want to excite the base. We want to build the base around this because this is going to be happening a long time, right? This is going to be going on for a long time. There's no quick fix to it because we were warned about it before. So right now, we build our base, justice on every block, which means every block deserves the same justice, right? And when we build our base, we put people that speak to our issues here locally, keep that momentum going, and with the intent for it to lead up to Tallahassee, working grassroots up, not top heavy down.
That's actually perfect. My next question was exactly that. What can Floridians who aren't in Tallahassee do to speak up in favor of affordable housing, Robin? And Senator, if you have anything to add to that afterwards, by all means.
My message here in Tampa, because we had our own storming of the Capitol. We stormed City Council on February the 24th. We had over 100 people come down to City Council. Those that were impacted, those that were supportive of people that were impacted, they were just there to support. And we also had developers there that felt, hey, I'm a landlord and this is too much. So everyone needs to be involved in it. What can they do? Get involved. Florida Rising is statewide. Look us up. But we have a housing campaign that we want to make change, and it's not an overnight change. We're not making promises to anyone, but the more people, power is with people. Power is with people. So we're not here to do it by ourselves. We recognize that there is an issue. And we support that issue, but we're trying to make policy change where we can.
Amen. I mean, Natasha, there's Robin hit it. I said it early. This is a government of, by, and for the people. And, there's a reason they keep the Capitol in Tallahassee. They like it. to be difficult for people to get to Tallahassee to have their voices heard. I know it's frustrating. I meet with groups all the time to come up here. The last 2 years have just been an assault on social issue after social issue and just leaving the little guy and the little gal behind. But the tide is going to turn. I promise you, this cannot sustain. But the way to do that is to keep your voices loud.
That's right.
And I say this all the time. With 95% of the legislators, fear is the biggest motivator.
That's right.
And it's fear of not getting reelected. And so if they know that a majority of constituents are against something, it's going to make them reconsider just over their own self goals and selfishness, if nothing else. If they can't have a conscience, at least, make them afraid. And last year was tough because of COVID. The Capitol was closed. And so it was really hard because we'd look out in those rooms and people would go to the Civic Center and have to testify via video. And it was stifling to the voice of the people. But we have to rise up. Look at the people of Russia protesting against their despotic leaders' unjust war. That's what's happening in Florida. We've got an unjust war on regular folks, and we have to be heard. And democracy thrives on participation, and it withers with apathy. I say it all the time, and so we need groups. We need Florida Rising. We need all people to keep doing it, keep fighting, keep putting it in their face. We get bills. Bills are just words on paper. We have 1,000 bills a year, 1,000 amendments a year. It's just words on paper. When people come up and go into an office and put a face to an issue, it becomes more real. And so please keep fighting out there, y'all. Don't give up. We cannot give up because this is our country. It's not the corporation's country. It's our country.
That's right. I love your statement, rise up, right? Because we rise up together and we can't do it by ourselves. So the important thing is to, that's why I say I'll be glad when Tallahassee closes, the legislature is over, and then we can continue and build for something great. So I'm looking forward to it.
Hopefully we don't extend. If we don't extend, we'll be.
I hope not.
We'll be safe in 3 days, Robin.
Senator, we charge you with doing all you can to ensure a timely finish this legislative session.
Yes,
I'm gonna try.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So I just want folks at home to know that we did drop a petition in the chat. If anybody wants to send a message to their lawmakers to fund affordable housing in the budget, it's not too late to ask for that now, okay? Because they haven't passed the budget yet, right, Senator?
That's right.
Okay.
No, they're holding it out there. So it's still in play.
All right, it's still in play. So, call your senators, call your representatives, email, whatever you need to do. Get in touch with folks like Robin at Florida Rising. So, there are a lot of different ways, share this post on social media, whatever it is that you can do that. And this is something that is going to take time. I think, Robin, it was very well stated, right? This isn't a crisis that started overnight. This is something that has been in play for a long time, and it has just gotten worse in recent years. And something's got to be done because it's affecting everybody. I really appreciate that you mentioned that it even affects, landlords and, it affects everybody, right? At every level. So something does need to be done about it. And it's going to take all of us, right, to do that.
Absolutely.
Well, that's all the time oh, sorry. Go ahead, Senator.
I'm glad. I'm sorry. I'm late to go speak to another group. So I didn't want to. I'm sorry, Natasha. I didn't mean to step on your cutoff. I just want to thank Progress Florida, thank Florida Watch, thank Florida Rising, thank you to everybody who's tuning in. I know we're kind of preaching to the choir here. If you're on this call, if you're on this Zoom or this video conference, you know what it's about, and you know where your head and your heart are. But it's that old thing. You go get 10 friends who go get 10 friends, get 2 friends. And it starts with making sure people are registered to vote. You gotta vote. If you
Yes.
don't vote, you don't get to complain. That's my rule. So thank you for all these organizations and all you're doing. I'll never stop fighting. I know Natasha and her group won't. I know you won't, Natasha. I know Rep Nixon won't. And we're going to turn this tide. We're going to turn this tide. Just keep fighting.
Absolutely. And to speak to Rep Nixon, she was, had to jump off and get back to doing the people's work. So we're just happy that she was able to be with us when she was. So that's it for today. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Senator Farmer, Rep Nixon, Robin Lockett with Florida Rising. Thank you all for taking the time to explain how the state budget works and how the housing crisis is impacting our communities and what we can do about it. We have a lot of work to do in Florida. But in the meantime, make sure that you like this video, share it with your friends and family so that they can stay up to date on what's happening in Tallahassee. And that's all for tonight. Everybody have a good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Night, everybody.